where he locates what he describes as tons of this mysterious white powder substance that apparently had been manufactured at Cerebet Alchemical.
Another thing that Lawrence Gardner pointed out is that Sir Flanders Petrie found crucibles on top of the mountain of Cerebet Alchemical. What a crucible is it's basically like a giant pot that can withstand extremely high temperatures, and this is where you calcinate or you burn things down. It suggests that this was a manufacturing plant. It was an alchemical plant that was happening there.
Lawrence realizes that what he's potentially dealing with in this line of research is gold that had been transfigured into powder, and as he continues on this path, he runs up against modern science that tells us that this white powder gold, as it's described, can interface with human DNA, making it many thousands of times more superconductive than in its natural state.
Throughout the temples and the tombs in Egypt, we very clearly see references to the pharaohs and those in high position being given or being offered a substance. According to the hieroglyphs, this is a substance that promotes longevity, promotes healing, and allows them powers that those who have not ingested the substance don't seem to have. The question is, what is that substance? There has been speculation for years that it is gold, a form of gold called monoatomic gold. When we see the temple walls, the pharaohs are being offered a pyramidal-shaped substance, and it is within that substance that the monoatomic gold is believed to exist.
Originally in ancient Egypt, what they did is they figured out how to extract these monoatomics, and they would bake it into bread for the pharaoh to eat. This monoatomic gold that was being ingested by the pharaohs was actually helping them not only raise their health, but also to have access to different densities of reality, to be able to unite what they believed was with their ancestors. In the Egyptian Book of the Dead, or the Egyptian Book of Coming Forth by Light, it talks about the pharaoh receiving these things as part of his journey to the afterlife. It says, "I am white, I am pure, what is it? I provide health and long life, what is it?" Well, it just so happens in Hebrew, the word mana, which is what this substance is, mana in Hebrew actually means, what is it?
There was a suggestion that the alchemical process to produce this gold was actually not just at Cerebet al-Qadim in the Sinai Peninsula, it was also found in the area around Memphis, linked to the priests of Ptah or the Order of Therapeutae. And so in fact, the tradition of creating this gold may have been found all over Egypt. And so we have the whole idea of alchemy really coming to the fore in ancient Egypt.
In terms of producing monoatomic elements, there's two ways. One way is to extract them, and you extract them by calcinating down vegetable matter to ashes. Then you subject it to certain acids and lyes, and you're able to get the monoatomic elements to precipitate out. The other way to do it is to convert platinum metals into this monoatomic state. This usually requires electricity, high arcs, as well as acids to do it. The Egyptians could have done either, based on the technology that we believe they inherited.
Monoatomic, first of all, means single atom. When it comes to exotic matter, which is what is hypothesized around the monoatomic elements, is that they were in an altered state and they weren't there naturally. They in a way almost had to be purified and transformed and taken through the alchemical process. So for example, the alchemists would have started with gold And they would have taken that gold through the alchemical stages and various purification. They would have submitted it to fire. They would have tried to purify and get all of the impurities out. And to the point where they could get it where fire no longer did anything to the element. And at that point, they said it was perfected. When it was in this perfected form, there are some alchemists, including Nicholas Flamel, for example, that were quoted as saying it was not a stone, but a white powder. And the ancient Egyptians were said to have been creating this white powder, this monoatomic gold, starting from gold, but then it became something else. And it was said that this was the true manna, or the Shem Ana, the bread of light and of life, and that this was fed to the Egyptian pharaohs and the high initiates to help them become enlightened.
The Egyptian name for the substance was actually mufkuzt. When the Templars went into Egypt and started studying the temple walls and they started studying the alchemical practices, what we now know is that this force called world spirit is actually ignitons, which are very small quasi-particles that are transmitted by active stars. It was believed that this monoatomic gold actually attracted the world spirit to it, or the ignitons. It was like a magnet for the ignitons. Now that we know this world spirit is ignitons, we decided we needed to do modern testing. So in order to do this, we sent monoatomic gold to Switzerland to be tested in a modern lab so that we could determine if these ignitons were really there. And what we found is that actually the monoatomic gold was loaded with ignitons, suggesting that it really was a great attractor for them. It was a magnet for them. Thereby, if you're actually ingesting this monoatomic gold, what you're really doing is you're taking in all these loaded ignitons. This is what's contributing to health, and it's what's contributing to the raising of consciousness, just like the ancient temple walls suggested. The Templars, as they learned the alchemical practice for creating monoatomic gold, started to bake this monoatomic gold into their bread, particularly their bread that was turned into communion wafers for the sacrament that they were serving. The Templars were known for living very long. It was believed that some of it had to do with their diet, but some of it had to do with ingesting these white cakes of monoatomic gold, just like the Pharaohs had in Egypt, that were attracting the ignitons to them. The Grand Master Jacques de Molay, who was burnt at the stake in 1314, he was in his 70s when most people only lived to 30 in those days. So we now know this is absolutely what was contributing to their long life and the reason why they were living so much longer than everybody else during that time.
One of the interesting features about when monoatomic gold is being produced is that 44% of it disappears. No one knows where it goes. Some people have suggested it actually goes to another dimension. The Egyptians called it the field of mufkuzt. And so this is like the kind of other dimensional connection we have with this gold. So they thought that when you take it, you're connecting with this other dimensional reality.
When we look to cultures all over the world, ancient cultures, to these magical substances that bring an ascended state of being, a higher state of enlightenment, we are not only seeing mufkuzt formed out of gold in Egypt, but we are finding in the Greco-Roman tradition ichor and ambrosia, the food of the gods that let them live in this higher state of vitality. We find in the Vedic and Hindu traditions soma, which brings you also into that higher ascended state. And if we go back to the Norse tradition, we find Idun and her golden apples, that when the gods eat these apples, they have eternal life, they have youthful vitality and strength. And it's very interesting that these apples are golden, just like the monoatomic gold of mufkuzt, the bread of the Pharaohs.